Charlie was a man of faith. He knew where he was going when his time came. I know that's not what he was planning on because he had so much to live for here. Dan, he was leading, I think, the most important revival that was taking place in our country, and that was young, conservative Christian people who were on fire for God, who were on fire for Jesus, who were on fire for this country to help get involved in service and the process, and also began to see just that the other side was so different than how they felt about faith and family and the right to life and so many things that we sort of take for granted as part of our DNA. The opposition is pulling farther apart from us and also getting more violent.
That is the head coach of the Auburn men's basketball team, Pro G-Sider Bruce Pearl.
And I think the reason why they're getting more violent is because, like Charlie Kirk proved every time he debated and had a discussion, he was on the side of right, he was on the side of good, he was on the side of accurate history and you know, for the most part of what he talked about, and they couldn't beat him. And so they killed him.
Okay, let's hang on a moment here. Let's start with him being right and on the side of good.
If I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. It begs the question, when you see a black pilot, you wonder, you say, I hope they are qualified. And in the spirit of affirmative action, we have Ramon and Cadillac are your two pilots. They've never flown before, but they are black. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know you do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously.
The war on white people continues.
You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
Blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today. Data shows they were actually better in the 1940s.
Let's get loud for Kyle Rittenhouse.
I'm also going to offer some context and some nuance about the death of George Floyd that no one dares to say out loud, which is that this guy was a scumbag. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. There's no such thing as white privilege or racism. Skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. Oh wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining.
There's a mythology around MLK that does not warrant the reverence that he gets treated with in America.
Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true.
So I suppose I am curious, where was he right? Exactly. Second, via NBC, the federal investigation into the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has yet to find a link between the alleged shooter, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, and left-wing groups on which President Donald Trump and his administration have pledged to crack down after the killing, three sources familiar with the probe told NBC. The reporting continues. One person familiar with the federal investigation said that thus far there is no evidence connecting the suspect with any left-wing groups. The source told the outlet, every indication so far is that this was one guy who did one really bad thing because he found Kirk's ideology personally offensive. Meaning Pearl, like many others on the hard right, they keep clamoring to this false equivalency of the shooter being a lefty and violence coming from the left. Even though, as we discussed last week, Congress.gov would go on to publish a report regarding domestic extremist-related killings in the United States by perpetrator affiliation from the years 2012 to 2021. And get this, 75% of all deaths that were accounted for came at the hands of right-wing extremists.
They murdered him, they assassinated him, they eliminated him. But what they didn't realize is they actually didn't. Because he is going to live on. He's going to live on through all of us that followed him, that learned from him. Because here's the deal, Dan. Like, Dan, you are one of the best at what you do. You are. But we all, and I'm pretty good at what I do too. But none of us could touch Charlie. I mean, he had a different gift.
Again, to reiterate, we still do not know the political allegiances of the shooter, and some have even pointed to analyzing what has been reported to be on the shell casings as part of the Groyper movement on Kirk. In August 2012, Kirk attended the Republican National Convention, where he bumped into multi-millionaire investor Foster Friess in a stairwell and convinced him to bankroll Turning Point USA, wrote The Independent's Kevin E. G. Perry. He also had big backers, wrote Forbes. The Wayne Duddleston Foundation, founded in the year 1981 by a late Houston real estate developer, is the largest direct donor in IRS records, giving over $13 million. Duddleston's backing of Turning Point USA didn't appear to have been reported previously. The piece continues. Other major backers include foundations tied to the late advertising executive Jack Roth, nearly $9 million. The late Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus, over $7 million. Franklin Templeton's former CEO Charles B. Johnson and his wife Ann, over $4.5 million. Dunn Capital founder William Dunn, $4.5 million. And Waste Management founder Dean Buntrock, over $4 million. Another bullet point from Zach Everson. Other billionaire-linked foundations that back Turning Point include those associated with ex-Marvel chair Isaac Perlmutter, tech entrepreneur Darwin Deason, shipping supply magnate Richard Uihlein, grocer John Katsimadis, the late former Univision chair A. Gerald Perenchio, and sandwich chain founder Jimmy John's. For Pearl, it's just more of the same.
I get so frustrated when I hear what a terrible country we are, how racist we are, how this is not the land of opportunity for everybody. Look, we've got a lot to work on, and there's racism that absolutely does exist, and it's wrong. But it's a lot better for my players than it was for their fathers, or for their fathers' fathers, or their fathers' fathers. And so I want my guys to recognize there are going to be obstacles, but not roadblocks. And that's what Barack Obama did. However, as our president, other than just love listening to him talk because he's such a great orator, I disagree with so many of his policies. I thought in so many ways, rather than uniting us as a country, even by race, he divided us. Everything was black and white. Everything was the obstacles that were against, my players from being successful. I'm trying to teach my guys, look, I don't want you working at Subway. I want you owning 5 of them. And that's possible. And I think in many ways, Barack Obama told a different story. So it's hard to criticize him though, because you get a lot of feedback that's really, really negative. My point on Obama the last time was this: he was calling on Israel for a ceasefire. He was calling on Israel to stop the war. He was calling on Israel to release the hostages. And I'm like, dude, they're not the ones holding the hostages. They didn't start this war. The war and the violence and all the atrocities that go on both sides of the war end the minute that Hamas surrenders, releases the hostages.
I would like to add this. Bruce Pearl, it has been announced via Gary Parrish of CBS Sports that he is retiring as head coach of the Auburn Tigers. Here's what AL.com wrote, Alabama.com. There have been serious rumors of Bruce Pearl getting into politics because Tommy Tuberville, the despicable Alabama senator who is going to run for governor of the state to do more of the bidding of corporate America, is going to leave his Senate seat open. So Semaphore was first to report, again, this is via AL.com, of Pearl's interest in running. He refused to answer any questions at SEC spring meetings just a week ago. Jewish Insider reported that Pearl would give himself until the end of the month to come to a decision. And he's saying that he's not running for the Senate, but I find that incredibly hard to believe because this was abrupt. We are entering October. His son, Steven, is going to take over the Auburn Tigers program. He says that he is going to take on a new role at Auburn. I find it very odd that someone would give up millions upon millions of dollars to do something that he claims he loves. To just be like an ambassador in a face. Unless the job took its toll, which it can on many, In my opinion, I expect him to run and do more bidding, like how Tuberville does for those stock tips, in my view. Pearl is going to do the same, and he's going to do it for Israel because he will not stop talking about it and thinks that they have done nothing wrong throughout time.